This is super overwhelming, and I just need this to be easy. I'm an e-commerce seller. What do I do?
Technology.
Why is it a landed cost?
Easiest way for me to think of it is I like to think of a package landing on my doorstep after I've ordered it online, and all the costs are paid when it finally hits my doorstep.
That makes sense to me. If you needed to add up, what is landed cost? What are the things that are going into that amount?
I'd say 3 main buckets you could put it in would be duties, taxes, fees.
And then shipping and items is usually part of the
that would be
the technical part of the total landed cost. How much is the shipping? How much is the items? Which we're not going to get into here. But yeah, the duty, the tax, the fees. Why is that a problem with e-commerce?
Well, in e-commerce, I like to, it's dealing with the same problems, right? Of packages moving across border and costs being incurred on those packages. But the customer is a little bit different. Historically, businesses have been selling to each other on container ships and, in large quantities to be cleared through customs, duties and taxes paid, and then a business is reselling them locally. And when a consumer's buying, all that stuff, all that complexity has already been taken care of by that business that they're buying from. And so they're usually just dealing with sales tax or really when they go to check out at the register at a local store, it's everything's paid for. They're done. They take it home, and what they paid at the register is all they pay. In e-commerce, what's happening though is in the last 25 or so years, e-commerce has really taken off, and the cross-border side of it's really grown dramatically. But what that does is when an e-commerce shopper buys from a retailer in another country, those complexities of cross-border clearance, duty and tax, all those costs kind of get pushed onto them to where they're now the one bringing the goods into their country and are responsible to pay those. And sometimes they're a lot different than what they expect.
De minimis, something meaningless, Latin phrase, right? That is derived from the word. I don't know what word it's derived from.
It means you're insignificant.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, what it's referring to in the trade world is all the crap that customs agents don't want to deal with.
Yep.
Falls under de minimis.
So basically, we don't care.
Yep.
And so therefore, we're not going to do anything about it.
That's right.
So de minimis value, which we just we introed at the beginning. This means insignificant. It's something that customs doesn't want to worry about, and countries have massively varying de minimis values. What country first comes to your mind when you think about de minimis values?
Oh man, I've dealt with a number of them, and de minimis is for me I often just run to the extremes, right? So you've got the extremes of like the United States when something's shipping here, they don't even bother collecting any sort of duty or tax or on a shipment unless it's over $800 US. However, probably the most significant country for many retailers is Canada. Canada does a lot of cross-border business, especially for US
So why
merchants.
would you say Canada, not like Europe or the UK?
Canada's de minimis is quite low, so they are applying duty and tax on anything over 20 Canadian dollars. So, here for us here in America, it's like $15.
Yeah.
And so the duty and tax calculations become really relevant for Canada, and a lot of e-commerce retailers are shipping a fair amount of product into Canada.
And that's not just U.S. origin e-commerce retailers. We're getting questions about de minimis into Canada from customers all over the world because, like you said, it's a very low threshold to a pretty big economy that buys a lot of goods online, and so it gets a lot of noise.
Yes, it does. And I think of other countries, if you think kind of the main markets of the world, you've got US, Canada, Europe, UK, and then you've got Australia. I would put on that list as well. And Australia's also got a very high de minimis of 1,000 Australian dollars. However, you go into Europe and the UK, they're They're effectively the same. 150 euros is the de minimis for when they start applying duty. But many of these countries want their tax money, so they're paying tax on the first dollar nowadays. If you look at kind of a trend that's happening around the globe, they want, these countries want their tax revenue, but they don't want to have to put forth the effort to collect it. And so Australia did a brilliant thing 5 years ago. Actually, we're on to 6 years ago now. Back in 2018, they rolled out a law that said, okay, any retailers that are selling a significant volume into Australia, which is 75,000 Australian dollars worth of goods in a year, you need to register and remit sales tax to us directly. It's on you, retailer, wherever you are in the world, to collect and remit that sales tax to us directly on orders under 1,000 Australian dollars. So if I'm a small merchant, I can ship everything duty and tax free into Australia and never have to do that.
Because the de minimis is 1,000 AUD.
Yep. And then once I hit that 75,000 Australian dollars worth of sales, Australia still doesn't want to collect it. They're just telling me I need to do it.
So this is Scout's honor. Yep. You better be...
They're watching.
They're watching.
They're watching.
And so you might end up getting, how do they watch, right? So let's say that you have a big shipper out of the US and they get caught. What's the ramifications if they get caught?
Right now they've got the numbers. This is from sources that we have. But they're only able to go after the big offenders right now.
Okay.
Right. So how long it's going to take for them to work down the list of the small offenders, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But they have big threats, but they're going to work with retailers. I think to a degree. I think they're going to be reasonable, but they want that. They want everyone to comply. But it's worked really well for them to go through this process. So New Zealand followed suit, the EU and the UK, Norway, Singapore. I mean, there's a number of laws out there where they expect you as a retailer. They're putting more burden on you as a retailer to register and collect and remit the sales tax directly, because it's expensive for them to have to go collect. So if they can put on the retailer to collect it at checkout, they win.
Why do fees matter here?
Great question. They matter a lot.
Like what is fee? Yeah, what?
There's a lot of buckets for fees. Fees can be levied by the country for just import fees. If there's special kind of products that need licensing, there can be fees associated with that. And then you've got the fees for your broker or carrier that's doing the work to process the clearance of those goods, and they'll charge fees.
Wait, I thought in e-commerce it was brokers inclusive on the air shipments with UPS, FedEx, and DHL.
Yes, that's true. Asterisk. There are many other fees. So let's say it is inclusive for certain types of shipments, but if your shipment has tons of items on it, they can start charging extra for each line item over a certain amount of lines. Or
so line items on the commercial invoice go over 5, for instance, which is a kind of common example.
That's a common example.
You go over 5 line items. They're like, look, now we have to take extra effort on this shipment, so we're going to charge you $1 per line.
Yep.
Or something like that.
Yep. And then you've got your disbursement fees. That's a common term. I've heard it called disbursement, deferment, advancement, et cetera. Yeah. There's a number of different terms for the same concept, which is, hey, they're gonna facilitate that payment of the duty and tax to the local government, and they usually have to outlay the money first and then turn around and go collect it. And so they'll add a fee in for that as well.
So do you think you could categorize these fees into 2 high-level buckets? One is what the governmental type fees are. So like an agricultural fee maybe that's on a shipment going into New Zealand, right? That's going to be charged by it's government, it's state level. And then you have the carrier broker level, which I'll probably for e-commerce mix together, because a lot of times the carrier is the broker, or they're the ones that are abstracting the importer from the broker and just kind of like combining it all with the fees. Would that be?
Yep.
Okay.
Those are at the highest level possible. That'd be the 2 buckets. What the heck is an HS code, Chanel?
All right. HS code's short for Harmonized System Code, and it's a set of standardized universal codes that are used by almost 200 countries to recognize and assign a code to every product being shipped in and out of countries. And countries use these codes to assign duties and taxes and apply restrictions and for other data purposes. And these codes were created and are maintained by the WCO, the World Customs Organization. And I think they started maybe in like the 1950s, and they make amendments and changes every 5 years, with the most recent one being in 2022. And up to the universal, the 6 digits, again, is recognized by almost 200 countries. But then beyond the 6 digit are country-specific codes, which are created and maintained by each specific country for further data purposes and restriction purposes. And that's a kind of high-level overview of HS codes.
What is a commercial invoice, anyways?
Well,
Why do we even have them?
I mean, the customs needs to assess duties on a package. They need to know what's entering the country, right? Mm-hmm. And the commercial invoice is that document. It's that official agreement stating what is coming into the country, and so they can collect all of their monies.
So you mean to tell me on every single cross-border shipment has to have a commercial invoice to tell customs what's inside the box? Every single one.
I almost told you that, and then you reminded me that actually isn't always the case. Because what if you were sending these?
That's right.
Ooh, more
documents.
Documents, right? So documents don't need a commercial invoice.
Yep.
But everything else, for the most part, that I can even think of, any reasonable shipment to any country in the world, you're going to need a commercial invoice.
Let's talk about the experience of the retailer, and then let's talk about the experience of the shopper. So for the shopper, the retailer's like, oh, sweet, I'm done. Shopper, it's on you, right?
That was easy.
They think they've washed their hands of it. Well, when that shopper gets the bill, they go, nah, I'm not paying this. I already paid $70. Forget that. Guess what they can do? They can tell the carrier, I don't want it. I'm going to refuse the shipment.
Well, then they're going to be out their money.
Will they, though? These credit card companies are pretty good at taking care of their customers, right? So they can do a chargeback, and it just turns into a whole fiasco of now the shopper will get with their credit card company and try to do a chargeback, which is really expensive for the retailer and just time-consuming and painful for everyone involved.
So the retailer loses their $70.
Yep.
And why did and honestly, I mean, the shoppers winning this chargeback because it didn't even get delivered. I mean,
Right.
It made it to customs.
Right.
So when all they need to do is claim non-delivery,
Easy
and they'll
peasy,
win
right?
every time.
Yep. And then the retailer, don't forget about this. This retailer also has a package that's stuck in another country
That's worth money.
And so they've got to decide what to do with it. Now, in this case, they're probably just going to abandon it because the return shipping is going to be way more than the shipping going out. And so it just turns into a mess. And then guess what this retailer also has? Or actually, I should say, guess what they don't have?
What?
A future customer. Because that customer is never coming back.
Yeah. No, that's and oftentimes then these customers, as you've seen the stats, if they don't know what the duty and tax is going to be, they're not a future customer for anyone that is not offering duties and taxes at time of checkout, because they've now been they learned the hard way, and so they're going to avoid retailers that aren't offering the ability to pay that duty and tax at time of checkout. So,
yeah. If they see a site like that again, no matter who
Right.
it is, they're never going to buy again.
So I want to get that in a minute, but I still want to talk about that shopper experience and how poor it was. Even when they do pay, right? Like how do they pay? Like, this is really sophisticated, right? They just like tap Apple Pay, just online, just quick.
It depends, right? Like who's collecting? Every carrier's kind of got their own systems that they're trying to collect. Some of it could be just showing up at the doorstep and needing cash. It all depends on the country it's going to and who's trying to collect.
But if you're needing cash, that would be just like a, remote like countries, smaller countries that are unsophisticated, right? That are actually collecting cash at the door. I actually think the United States Postal Service does this on stuff coming into the United States.
There's a high de
US
minimis,
high de
so it doesn't
minimis,
happen
$800
very
bucks. No wonder they haven't built anything around this because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
But when it does happen, the delivery driver's gonna, walk up to the doorstep and knock and say, yeah, you owe me some money, like literal money. Can you give me some dollars?
Well, and you talk about just the delivery experience. Even if the shopper knew that they were going to have all of these duty and tax, and they could calculate it perfectly, and they knew exactly what the cost was going to be. Just the delivery experience is way more painful than it needs to be, because a lot of times they might even the shopper might have to go and collect their package and pay at a post office or, some other collection facility, depending on who the courier is. And it's just clunky and difficult and painful. And guess what? Even if they knew what it was and later on they decided, I actually don't want that anymore, they could still refuse it.
Yeah, they can still refuse. I mean, they're getting it. It's also delivered slower typically because it's being held up while this is happening. This is super overwhelming, and I just need this to be easy. I'm an e-commerce seller. What do I do?
Technology.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, right? Technology. Now, there's shipping platforms out there that do a really good job of pulling in your data from, Shopify or Magento or whatever platform you're selling on. They pull it into their system and make it easy for you to pre-populate all this information. However, I will say, most of them are not that good at the international side of things, especially when we're talking discounts and all of those things. They're going to be a little limited on functionality, but they'll get you 90% of the way there.
Aaron, this is where I do the shameless plug.
Please do.
Like, I do not know of anyone that is as good as Zonos at taking what happened at the time of the order, the e-commerce order, and transforming that appropriately for the shipment. And so if it's one integrated system where, let's say you're on Shopify, you're using our app, and we take the order, when you go to process the label and that commercial invoice is getting completed, it's going to appropriately do, pretty much most of the things we talked about today and fill out a commercial invoice. And it can be that easy. They're just getting it printed. Automatically create a quality description for AI. We talked about that in an episode. We're going to create a good description for you. We're going to automatically assign the harmonized code. We're going to help you manage your catalog and have the right country of origins always on the commercial invoice.
Discounts,
like consulting line items, through the list.
Putting the tax ID on when it's relevant.
Yes. Yep. Which is a lot of work in itself.